You might have asked yourself, how is electricity generated from copper wires and magnets? We're going to look into that in this video. Just wait a bit to find out. So, I made a homemade DIY mini generator that produced enough voltage capable of charging your electronics, things like your phone, earbuds, and so on. I wanted to see how far or how complicated it might be to generate electricity, and from what I gathered both in this and in the previous videos, it is not hard at all. I will explain how magnets and copper wires generate electricity. You just have to wait a bit to hear that. While trying to get more voltage out of this mini generator, the magnet attached to the shaft of the motor broke off from the rotor and took the stator with it. Let's make this mini generator to see and know how it actually works. I started by getting a DC motor, the same type that you can find in a cordless drill, so you know that it's going to be very fast and powerful. I then got 4 magnets that has its dimensions to be 15mm by 5mm and a nuts and bolt washer used to guide a bolt through a specific path. I also got a piece of tape and used that tape to wrap around the shaft of the motor because the hole of the washer was bigger than the shaft. And even after wrapping the first layer of the tape around the shaft, I passed the shaft of the motor into the washer and it was still loose around the hole of the washer. So I added another layer of tape to match the hole of the washer. And when I got it right, I passed the motor through the washer to be sure that it fits. Once it did, I put some glue inside the washer and capped it around the shaft of the motor. Once that was set, I got the magnets to place on the washer, and since there are 4 of them, I placed it in pairs on opposite sides facing each other, having an orientation of north and south. I then used super glue to hold the first pair of magnets onto the washer and put some more glue under the magnets to ensure an even coating. I then removed one of the magnets from the first pair to have a better grip on the rotor setup while applying super glue. They were a bit tricky to keep stable. They kept shaking constantly, making the application to be difficult. It's such a pain to close my eyes. I'm falling in this deep immerse. But when I felt that the magnets were strong enough on the washer, not completely solid, but strong enough, I got hot glue and applied it around the magnets. The washer sat in the middle of the magnets, which means that the edges of the magnets were not supported by anything. So if left that way, the centrifugal force from the motor acting on the magnet, those edges would want to attract to themselves, making them to unstick and fly off. With the help of the hot glue, the edges will be supported, and that will make them to stay put, and also add an extra layer of adhesion to the rotor, or so I thought. Wait till the end to see what happened. After applying the hot glue, I applied super glue around the magnets to attach the second magnet on them, and then applied hot glue through the holes of the magnets to keep them bound together from the inside. And also applied super glue around the magnets to strengthen their adhesion and keep them clean as much as I could. After applying these glues, I found out that the tape around the shaft of the motor wasn't strong enough, so I removed it from the shaft and applied super glue into the hole and pressed it back around the shaft of the motor slowly while rotating the magnetic rotor to avoid going down too deep and getting the super glue to touch the motor bearing, making the motor to get stuck. After making the magnetic rotor, it is time to wind the copper wires around a metal to make the stator for this generator. And to do that, I got these PVC pieces that I cut into rectangles and 2 nails to hang the wires around them. I put 2 pieces together and used a drill to make a hole through them, using one as a guide. I then passed a nail through 2 pieces and used super glue to keep the pieces at a place on the nail. I then got some copper wires and made a few turns around the nail to keep it tight, and then attached the nail to a drill and used it to spin the wire around the nail. This method is easier and faster because if you've made a generator like this or a DC motor, you will know that winding wires is very stressful and annoying. So now that we have our stator and rotor complete, it is time to bring them together into one piece. I used a flat PVC as the base and kept the motor on it, and the rotor wasn't touching the base this time, unlike my previous videos, which if you are attentive you would know why. So I applied super glue on the base and placed the motor on it. Gave it a little time to set before applying more around the motor for a stronger bond to keep it from shaking or shifting during operation. After that, I got the stator and positioned it close to the rotor, but not too close, because from previous experiences, the closer the rotor is to the stator, the more chances they have to come in contact and destroying themselves. Or so I thought. Again, wait to the end to find out what happened to this almighty setup. When I got my desired distance, I used a super glue to hold the stator onto the base. And I got hot glue and applied it around the motor, because after this time super glue must have dried and set around the motor. The super glue was down the center of the motor, so when the motor rotates, it might shake and become loose from the super glue. So the hot glue will add more support around the motor just like it does for the rotor. Alright, take a good look at this mini generator because it is time to test it to see what it can give us. I got a multimeter already set to the AC output and then connected the wires from the generator to the multimeter, and got a pair of clips that I attached to the terminals of the motor. This drill motor has its terminals sticking out, so it was easy to clip them on. I got a battery, and completing the circuit, we can see that the generator gets up to 6 and almost 7 volts. In fact, it gets up to 7 volts. Now, over to the topic of the video. How does magnets and copper wires generate electricity? Listen to know how. A copper wire has a characteristic that when you pass it around a magnet, or in this case, when a magnet passes around it, the atoms inside the copper gets aligned with the magnetic field. For example, when the north pole comes around, the atoms moves outwards into the multimeter. Also, immediately the south pole comes around, it makes the atoms to realign and change direction. Let's say the north pole makes the atoms to leave the loop through the left terminal into the multimeter and enters back into the loop through the right terminal. When the south pole comes around, it makes the movement of the atoms to change direction. Therefore, the atoms will leave from the right into the load, or in this case the multimeter, and back into the loop through the left terminal wire. When the magnets increase in speed, the clockwise and the anti-clockwise movements of the atoms increases in speed, therefore increasing the voltage output. So I would say that the speed of the rotor is directly proportional to the output voltage, or you can add more magnets to get more movements in the wire with the same speed as the rotor with 2 poles, but with greater voltage. I hope you understood this, and if you found this helpful, do like and subscribe. I made previous videos that has 4 poles which has pairs of magnets in north-south orientation, unlike this one that has 2 pairs with just north and south orientation. In the previous video, I used a 3.7 volt battery to make the motor to work, and it gave me around 12 to 14 volts, which is twice the output of this generator that has 2 poles. Therefore, when you add more poles, there will be an increase in voltage when the speed remains the same. I would say that when speed remains constant, increase in number of poles is directly proportional to increase in voltages. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comment section and then give me the right proportions. So when I used 2 batteries in the last video, it gave me up to 22 to 24 volts, which is twice of 12 volts that I got in the last video. Now in this video, when I used 2 batteries, I got around 12 to 14 volts, which is twice of what I got using just a single battery, and the single battery gave me just around 6 to 7 volts, which is to tell you that when there is an increase in rotation speed, increase in number of poles, there will be significant increase in output voltage, and all this backs up my explanation. I will explain more in a different video, but this is it for this one. Don't forget to turn on your notifications to know when the next one drops. Until then, don't just build, bend the rules while doing so. Make some noise make some mess before you make some sense. I'm Emmanuel, and this is Next Day Labs.